Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast. My name is Jesse Jackson with a slight cold. You could probably hear that in my voice. But joining me, sounding absolutely perfect, is Lou,
Hello, everyone. How are you doing?
Karen,
Hello.
and we are talking the second episode of season 5, The Very Long Night of Londo Mollari. Originally aired January 28th, 1998. And there were people that said this is a little bit their version of It's a Wonderful Life. Other people go, it's more Christmas Carol. I think it's a combination of both. And spoilers, I think it works pretty well. So let's start with you, Karen. Quick thoughts about this one.
I liked it. I think there was a lot of metaphor in it, obviously, is what they were going for, I think. And him act through the whole episode is Peter Jurassic was a treat. I do appreciate his ability to translate that character. And I know Lou is struggling to forgive him. And I do feel like I'm softening a bit to him. And I'm sure it's just the writing and where they're trying to go. I'm very susceptible to that. But I appreciated the device and that it wasn't a clip show where it very easily could have been.
I'm reminded before we had to worry about J.K. Rowling and her craziness, I used to love reading her posts and her discussions. And she often talked about that the character Draco Malfoy, a lot of people wanted to believe in that character. And she says, I think it's a lot to do with Tom Felton's performance.
Yeah.
It is not necessary because if you just read the book, you have like, no, this person's unredeemable. This
Right.
is the worst. But because Tom Felton played him so well and was so charming, there were people that wanted to see that character be redeemed. So I do think that the character as played by Peter Jurassic really helps the Londo character. Lou, how
Yeah.
about you?
I think your last point is bang on. I've never had a problem with his performance. I think he plays the part wonderfully. But again, the story arc that they gave him is, I'm sorry, he was the Hitler of Centauri, and you can dice that up and make him as nice and lovable as you want, but that's his character. That's what his character did. So that's not redeemable. As to the episode itself, I quite enjoyed it. I don't know why this wasn't in season 4, however, but that's just one of those things because of the crunch of not knowing that you were getting a 5th season. But this seems to me that it should have been a season 4 episode.
And do you say that as it's a good thing?
That what?
That it is that you feel like it would have worked better in season 4 or
Yes.
it would have fit more? Okay.
Yes, it would have
Okay.
worked better in season 4. Now it's after the fact, cleanup feel to it.
Okay. Interesting. So I think this is basically Londo has a heart attack. And we find out that he is related to Time Lords. And his favorite Bruce Springsteen song is Two Hearts Are Better Than One.
Yep.
And
Nicely done, sir. Nicely done.
thank you, thank
Yes.
you. Um, and so basically, the majority of the story is Londo's dreams
Mhm.
and him working through this. And it, in a little way, it's very simplistic. The idea that he needs to say, I'm sorry, and needs to sincerely mean it.
Mhm.
And I think that's a little simplistic because it's easy to say you're sorry. It's harder to change your actions. But I understand what they're going toward. Lou, your thoughts on that kind of, is this an oversimplification?
I was struggling during the whole episode with the fact that we know his real death is in the future. So they try to create tension here, but I was going, you've shown us this future, and we haven't been told that there's alternate timelines or anything like that. So I assume that path is still coming. Now you can argue that it's a dream and it may not be fulfilled, but we've seen glimpses of it through Sheridan's time traveling escapades. So I never really felt like he was in danger of dying beyond you have to accept that he's a regular character, blah, blah, blah. But the stakes in the episode never made me feel like they got around that elephant in the room of that alternate death scene that we've been shown so many times during the course of this series. With that in mind, I think that the simplistic nature of it was probably a byproduct of the fact that they just felt that the actor could carry the whole episode on his own shoulders without having to make it too crazy. The dream stuff that allowed them to use weird camera angles, off kilter viewpoints, and things like that. So I think with that in mind, and bearing in mind that a lot of that they're trying to reboot the series, so they don't want to get into too much stuff here for the new viewers, which maybe is a detriment to this episode in that aspect. If it had been in season 4, they might have gotten a little more complicated with it, but I think they had to pull back on a lot of stuff because of that mindset. So it worked mostly because of Peter Jurassic's acting, and I thought that he carried himself quite well as he always does.
Karen, how about you?
I think he is incredibly capable of carrying an episode almost solo, not quite, but I think he did a really good job. I enjoyed seeing his struggle with himself. And I thought that was the most compelling part is that okay. Part of this is I'm not sure about destiny being destiny, that it happens because it happens, which is it's something I think about a lot when I think about time travel because I am so into the time travel thing.
Sure.
Um, that can we change our destiny or not? And I think that conversation between Londo and Veer, it really does bring up this question of is it a foregone conclusion? And yeah, I know that they saw it in the future when Sheridan goes to the future, but there's part of me that says, okay, we saw that, but is another destiny possible? And it's things like that that make me think, make me muse on personally, I think that time travel we've already seen it happen a little bit where people go to space and when they come back, their body is different than the people on Earth. They're out of sync. The people have aged more on Earth than he has. So he's in the future. And I know that's very complicated. I'm sorry I'm getting into all that, but changing our destiny, I'm not sure about. So it always gives me something to think about. And I think that they've already hinted at the fact that destiny dream might be able to be changed. And I'm still wondering what fate has in store for him. So there's that thing warring in my brain as to, okay, is it set in stone or is it not? And Veer did talk to him and they danced around that. And I do agree, there wasn't a lot of tension around whether he was going to live or not because he's not going to die. We know that. But I think the tension was in how he was manifesting the people that he interacted with, Delenn, Sheridan, and ultimately Jakar. because those are people that he has complicated relationships with and how they came to him. Like Sheridan came to him three different ways, which I thought was interesting. His old uniform, his new uniform, and then the Jedi robes, as I'm calling them,
The Ghost of
uh,
Christmas Past.
present and future. Yeah. Like he was all of them. And then
And
Delenn with the veil and
a ranger as well, wasn't he? And also looked like a ranger suit.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But
He
But
was
yes.
he was whatever Londo needed to see in that moment
Hmm.
is what he saw.
Yeah.
And I do, is some of that him manifesting, or is that kind of his, I don't know what it is that we see. Is it a telepathic kind of thing? Is it a, because they do have that power, whatever it is, to see the future. Is that part of what's happening? Is it some sort of connection with those people?
Hmm.
There was a lot to ponder there, and that's what made it very interesting to me. And he is so great, and it's nice to see him alone without the some Jakar to play off of. And I have to say, he's delightful to watch either way. I
mhm.
Sure.
prefer him with Jakar, but
Yeah.
but it
All
was
right.
great.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please, I'm done.
Sure.
Okay, great point. And your discussion about destiny versus fate is always an interesting one, and it's one that literature has struggled or dealt with in various aspects for a long way. But my biggest disconnect with the episode, and I'm really curious to see how you two respond to this, is everybody's reaction to Londo's situation. If you watch season four, they all are really do they almost seem to hate the guy. They're appalled at what he's doing, and yet there's this kind of like in this episode, there's this chumminess, buddiness thing that I just can't buy from all these characters, knowing what he's done to them, to Jakar's people, and but they're all acting like he's one of the gang. He's a good guy. He's my best friend. To me, that just doesn't jibe. And I know the show has to promote this friendly cast, this our cookie collection of characters that have worked together to solve problems kind of thing. But in the universe that's been set out by JMS, the relationships between between Londo and the other characters just doesn't seem realistic to me. And I'm just curious, Jesse, I'll throw it to you first. What do you think about how they're reacting to Londo's situation?
I think Delenn talks about how often they would argue, right? And how she would be unhappy with him. But I also think he's also been very charming at times. And I do think that it is a personal choice. Can someone be redeemed, right? Can you forgive and move forward? But I do, to defend Londo, and I'm not saying your thought is incorrect because I absolutely agree it. But to mine, I do think he's done enough actions to show that he is honestly is sorry and regrets his decisions and is doing everything he can to make better decisions and try to heal the damage he's done. Now, is it too late? I think we could make that argument it is. One of my frustrations I had, I'll be honest, with my brother, and we're coming up on, I'll be thinking a lot of him because his birthday is in a few weeks. And February, it's been 2 years since he's been gone. But he would often say mean or unkind things, and then he would just casually, "Well, I owe you an amends," because he
Hmm.
was very active in AA. I at times felt like he treated the amends as a get out of jail free card.
Right.
And I'm not demeaning people. I admire people that are in recovery, and I understand that is hard. I have certainly done my share of damages to people and then wish, and regret what I've done. But the idea of just, I was wrong, but there, when I knew better, I did better. to mix my metaphors. So I feel like Lando is doing that. So that's, I guess, why the people were, I felt a little bit more about, yes, they would be doing these things. And I do think it's Veer, one of the ones that was most there. And then the doctor is always cared about life. So I think he looks at him as a patient. So I think Delenn has explained why she felt that way. So I bought in the feelings of everyone. And before I go to you, Karen, I want to hear your thoughts too. I just looked it up on Lurkers. Sheridan wore an Earth Force uniform, shirt without a coat, Army of Light uniform, robes of the Rangers on Lashak, and then, or necessarily the Rangers, but a Minbari robe. Then he was a simple white robe like a Minbari acolyte. So for what it's
Okay.
worth. All right, Karen, please. What are your
All
thoughts
right.
about, which I think is a darn fine good one?
I think so too. Yeah, I think it's more about it's not like they would say he deserves it because that's not the kind of people they are. I think it's more about their character than Londo's character. And I think some of it is down to the fact that they sympathize with Veer. And there some of it is just they don't want to see Veer hurting like this. But there is part of it that's, oh yeah, he's our friend again, which I agree. It's weird and jarring. It's one of my hand waves, definitely, because in the two episodes we watched, and that's a little behind the scenes thing that we're doing
Yeah.
two episodes. He was definitely a part of the whole thing. Now, part of that is the fact that they played up this whole if the Narn and the Centauri can join forces to sign this, then anybody can. And I think it forces them to work together, which is the conceit, essentially, of getting him back into the fold. And like you said, Franklin is going to care no matter what.
Yeah.
I would like to think that somewhere in his brain he would not sympathize as much because he had to treat all those Narn that were escaping from the homeworld. Maybe he's got a soft spot. I get it that the show needs us to move on from all that in order to have this character still in the fold, because otherwise, if we don't believe that, then he's not necessary to the plot. And I do think he's necessary. So yeah, there, in my rambling way, I'm very sorry. You guys, again, behind the curtain, I'm very sleep deprived.
Yeah.
And so I'll
But
be rambling a little bit,
but I don't feel like you're rambling at all.
okay.
I think this is a good, you either buy the bit or you don't, as comedians say. And I think you either buy into Londo's redemption story or you don't. And I'm a sucker for redemption stories, so I do buy into it. But I respect that it didn't, for other people, it didn't click. Like sometimes I think it's Daryl that has often many issues about JMS's writing. He is more critical about some of
Right.
these things than perhaps some of the rest of us. So,
I think
does
it's
that kind of
Nathan.
answer your question, Lou?
I think it's
Yeah,
Nathan.
I understand those viewpoints, and it might just be a character fault with me that
Oh,
I
I
can't
don't
get
think
past
so.
that.
No.
But I just find it weird in this show where they've made him out to be this war criminal that there's not one person on that station that doesn't have any sort of antagonistic feelings towards him, especially Jakar. And I know
Mhm.
Jakar is on this elevated spiritual level thing, but there has to be somebody on that station, but it just doesn't seem to land. It's, oh yeah, he did that. Oh, okay, let's go on. It's no big deal. Yeah, he almost did genocide to an entire race of people, but hey,
Yeah, and
Yeah,
and he,
I'd like to think that we're almost three different viewpoints.
yeah,
I'm straddling the line. I actually had a conversation with my husband because he popped in while I was watching and sat down with me for a little bit. And I said, dude, this Londo guy, I love his character a lot, but man, and I literally used the word Hitler, that
yeah,
he was the Hitler of the show but you can't help but like the dude. And so I'm that every once in a while it pops into my head and I'm like, why are they friends? But then there's part of me that's I want to see him on the show. So I
Yeah.
gotta hand wave that. So we're coming from three different ways, and I think I understand each viewpoint, and that's why this podcast is interesting to me and why I enjoy
Yeah.
talking to you guys so much.
And I do think it's interesting if you had a character, and I cannot remember what show I'm quoting, but there was a character once they were talking about it when they said, then let them die. They were talking about something, and I wish I could
Kirk
remember
said
what
that in
show.
Star Trek 6. Let them
Yeah,
Yeah,
die.
okay, there we go. Yes. Yeah,
yeah.
then let them die. And
Yeah.
so that makes sense. Of course, it's Star Trek. So yeah, it does feel like there should be, and I don't know, maybe if for various reasons, Jakar does not have an aide because they the first season, the person they had as an aide had an opportunity to go do other things. Then the second one didn't like the makeup, and then they decided, JMS says, with the journey but Jakar was going on, it would better serve them not having an aide. Because there should be a Veer, there should be a Lennier, there should be, and to see if Jakar's aide, or we saw another Jakar, another Narn have that no, let him die, I think would be a
Mm.
nice kind of character beat
And a
to see.
counterpoint to Veer as
Yes,
well.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would liken the situation in a com kind of different way to Crace from Farscape, who
Yeah.
was a redeemed villain. Now, he didn't want genocide, but he definitely
Yeah.
wanted to kill Aaron, and he was ultimately redeemed. And I think a lot of that, like Lou said, is that he sacrificed himself for the
Yeah.
good of others. And so it's a looking back, he's redeemed kind
And
of.
in Farscape, the characters reacted to his change over time. They just
Right,
didn't automatically accept him. Like they were
exactly.
suspicious of him. So it felt more organic.
Yeah.
Whereas this show just brushes over stuff, the character stuff like this, and it just feels artificial to me. We're just doing this for the sake of the fact that we have him on the show, and we all need to get along because we're a group, we're an ensemble, and you're part of the show, and we need you to be in the show. So therefore, everybody has to pretend like they like you. That's just the
Okay.
vibe. That's just how it comes off for me.
Yeah.
So
And, and to me, I think there is been enough time. By the way, side note, one of the things I'm most happy about is at the end of season one of Farscape, I actually said, I have this feeling that Crace might have a redemption arc in him. And both of you were stone faced. And then after the fact said, oh my effing God, we wanted to lose our S because how did you see that coming?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit without specifics or maybe some little specifics here and there. The dream sequence were very cleverly written.
Mm.
The idea of the bottles are empty, Londo saying people are not being very charitable considering I'm dying,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Veer, is this a prophecy or metaphor? And with the tarot cards, and what difference does it make? And do you want to live? I just really loved all of that. And of course, I had to write down when Franklin says it's a death watch, I wrote suicide rap. We got to get out while we're
Mm.
young.
Mm.
Immediately had to think. So I enjoyed that story. And I do think it's interesting, Jakar looking at him in real life and in the dream, and the metaphor of now the lashes and
Hmm.
having to scream. We want to scream was really well done to me. Any other thoughts about this story before we go to the other? And I would call it the B story, but I actually think this is a pretty significant story. Any other thoughts about Jakar and Londo and his dream?
no, I think I've spoke my piece on it. I was interested in Jakar's reaction when Londo apologized to him
Yeah.
in the sick bay, and he just turned and walked away. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that felt like a good moment to me.
And
Yeah.
also, like when Londo went and begged him to sign the agreement and tried to apologize and Jakar refused.
Yeah.
I also think of the scene with Veer when Veer tried to say and Jakar had the blood drops. Yeah.
Yeah.
He is struggling with that.
I think Jakar, his reactions are pretty consistent.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so too. Yeah. All right, so Lennier has decided he's going to run off and become a ranger.
Okay, wait a minute. So I mentioned before I didn't think he was in love with Delenn, and
Yes.
now I am completely proven wrong.
Yes.
So how much in your brain did you say, ha, Karen?
I understood where you were coming from that. And I do think that as I think we've talked about before, Bill Mummy went to Joe and said, I think Lennier is in love with Delenn, and I want to play it that way without knowing where the story was going to go. And he said, okay, but remember what happened to Lancelot, right? And so he has said, Joe, that this did not change. He always had this storyline in mind, but it just changed a little bit how he got there. Delenn's pushing back, and I think Bill Mummy plays this great.
Yeah, I do too.
And when she says, I think I know why, and there is that look between them. And then when she tries to talk to John, and I thought this was some of the best lines. They say three is a crowd. And Delenn says to us, three is sacred.
Mm-hmm.
John's, whoa, baby. I may be sleeping triangly, and there's a lot of things, but yeah, I don't think I'm ready for that.
Yeah.
Karen, you've already started. Share us a
Oh.
little bit of your thought.
Yeah. Again, I was a little embarrassed that I had been
Because Karen's
pretty.
a big romance reader.
I am definitely. And
Just had to throw that in.
I'd like to think that everything's romance, by the way, Lou. Remember?
Yes, absolutely.
Every genre
The
is
best
romance.
stories have romance in them. Yes.
Exactly. And romance doesn't mean two people falling in love either.
Nope.
There's always some angst. And this was
Yes.
definitely the angst in this story. If there's not angst, then you're not doing it. I do appreciate that it's not that one of the big things that one of the big traps that writers fall into is not having the characters talk to each other.
Yes.
And I think personally that they have played this looking back that Delenn knew, but didn't want to confront it because if she did, then this kind of thing would happen. And
yeah,
that's the feeling I get, at least from it.
I agree.
Okay. So we're not getting that kind of angst, which again, I appreciate. That's a big trap
Yeah.
that writers fall into. And it's refreshing to see a storyline that he seems resigned to the fact that she's going to be with Sheridan. He may not be happy with it, but that's the fate. And who would want to hang around relegated to the friend zone? Who would want to stand there and watch her have a happy life with someone else? Not that he begrudges it. He doesn't. I
Right.
think he wants what's best for her. If, the whole if she's happy, I'm happy kind of thing, but he
Yeah.
doesn't want to be there. And I think that is perfectly done. I'm hoping that because he's taking Marcus's place, that we'll see him again, because we saw Marcus a lot.
Right.
And so he's going to go with the Rangers, and now we have a new connection to the Rangers. And I
Right.
think that's part of it too, right? That we needed that
Yeah.
kind of personal connection to the Rangers. And so he's going to take the role that Marcus had with us, having that bridge between the two. And I think he is well suited to it. We know that he is already in that mindset he's a very spiritual person, but dude can fight. Yeah, I think it's a good fit for him. I think it makes complete sense in the story that it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's easy to buy because I think it's just true. You don't have to buy it. That's how it would go
Yeah,
in real life. A lot of people are in this situation and they remove themselves from it.
right,
So I get it. And I do think Bill Mummy is brilliant as Lennier too. The casting on this show is something I cannot complain about at
right.
all. I think they've done an amazing job with the casting, and Billy Mummy is one of those perfectly cast people. I love his character. I love his interactions with Veer when he and Veer sat down and they do that kind of, yeah, we get where the other person is coming from because of our positions,
Hmm.
but it's not the same. They're not in the same situation, but they understand each other. And I
And
really like that too.
and in an earlier season, we saw them do that, and they
Mhm.
said, "We'll see you next week."
Yeah, they've done it a
Right?
couple times, and this was like their farewell to each
Yeah,
other, where he's saying, like, guess I won't see you next week. Not in those words, but hey,
yeah.
I'm leaving and now it's our last chance to talk to each other. Yeah, I really like that storyline. I think it's necessary.
Hmm.
Uh and again, I can't believe I had that viewpoint of it. Looking back, you know.
Yeah,
I,
I want to go to you, Lou, but I did love the idea that I had not heard of the Shirley Temple. I shall
yeah.
have to check that out when I go
Yep.
Yeah, that was funny.
to. Yeah, that was very funny. So, how about you, Lou? Thoughts on Lennier's decision, Delenn's reaction to it, and yeah, let's talk about Vera and Lennier's little meeting.
Yeah, I think I've stated this before. I'm a sucker for writing that doesn't come out and overtly make a point, and it's often the things that are left unsaid. It's like
Yeah,
when you read one of your favorite stories, and it's the stuff that's in between the lines that the writer has created and planted
yeah,
in your head. And I thought that Delenn and Lennier played those scenes wonderfully. Bill Mummy and the actress,
yeah,
I'm forgetting her name, it's Amira. I thought they both played those scenes wonderfully. I totally agree with Karen. I get why Lanier no longer wants to be around. Nobody wants to be a third wheel. And it's also, whether it's a cliche or what, but it reinforces the cliche that the good guys usually finish last in relationships. Because Sheridan, he's got a lot of good qualities, but he's also got some bad qualities. Whereas with Lanier, he's pretty, across the board, a good guy. And he would do anything for Delenn, and he's stated that many times. Yet, for some reason, good guys always get taken for granted by people. And I'm talking across genders, and I'm not just talking about from male perspective. I think it happens on both sides. I, I, I really empathize with his character during those scenes. It's interesting that you mentioned that Bill Mummy wanted to take the storyline in that direction, and I don't know how much further their discussions went beyond what happened in this episode, because you said JMS said that it doesn't significantly change his linear story arc. So this Rangers thing was probably already in place. This going to the Rangers, maybe the dynamics were slightly different, but I think they probably would have just played up more that he wanted to honor Marcus's memory aspect of it more than his relationship with Delenn. So I thought it was really well played, and I really appreciated the writing in this particular storyline. I thought it was really well done. And for the scene between him and Veer, I thought it was, you've already talked about the Shirley Temple line, which was great because I think it drives, it's that nice little turn of comedy and what's a kind of a downer scene. But it also makes us remember that even though these two characters are acting very human, they both are aliens, even though visually it's very easy to see that they are. But it's like with the Muppet characters on Farscape, after a while, you get past that and they become like real characters to you and they become human as well. And then you forget that they're not real characters in the sense of being portrayed by an actor. So I thought that was a really nice touch in that scene. So yeah, this was my favorite part of the whole episode.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Can I just say really quick?
please.
I
Yeah,
thought the
please.
transition between the scene between Lanier and Kato and then Veer, sorry, Lanier and Veer drinking there, where Veer walks away and then Mollari Londo shows up right there in the Zocalo. I think that
Yes, that was a nice cut.
transition was
Yep.
really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really well done. Let's put a pin in this discussion because there are things that I want to say specifically about both of you that I can't say till toward the end of the season.
Okay.
Okay.
About
So,
both of us, or
yeah, both of what you've said.
okay.
So
Yeah, I've
we'll,
got a bit of a disclosure to make on this whole
yeah.
situation. Unfortunately, I was watching some Bill Mummy interviews, non-B5 related.
Ah,
However, he did mention the arc for his character, and
okay.
I have that knowledge. So
Okay.
unfortunately, though I don't think it didn't color anything in this episode for me, but
Yeah.
I just want to put that out there.
Okay.
Uh,
We'll keep that vague, but I think how Lennier gets to what he does
yeah.
may have been what changed, not where he ended up.
Yep.
And we'll keep that vague and look Karen confused. Now,
That's
uh,
fine. I'm okay
yeah,
with being confused.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think, and Lanier's sitting there before he's going to leave, looking. Is she going to come? Is she going to come? And then she does. And I think if this is going to sound overly trite, so I'm going to say it anyway, and I'm probably not being fair. But I think Delenn wants her cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think she adores Lennier, and Lennier is, I won't say her best friend, but let's just use those terms. He is her best friend. She is like an extension of her. She needs him in her life. And selfishly, she wants that to, because her life, she is happier, she is better,
Right.
she is more fulfilled with both of these people in her lives.
Yeah.
But she also acknowledges that's not fair to him.
Correct.
Mhm.
And
That's a selfish part of her.
yeah,
It's nice to see that she has some clay feet
Yeah.
happening.
yes, exactly.
He's a connection to her previous form.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Oh yeah. That's
And
a
I
good
like how so random story.
Favorite
But
parts of the episode.
yeah,
yeah.
so my in-laws adored me. Like Linda's father especially thought of me as another son.
Oh, nice.
However, one of their quirks was for some reason only family members were allowed to go to the house on Christmas Eve.
Yes, I think you've told us a story.
I've told the story before.
Yep.
Yes. And so to remind, 4 years of dating, Linda and I was never invited to Christmas Eve.
Yep.
So after we were married, everyone's, oh, you get to go to Christmas Eve, you get to go to Christmas Eve. And I'm like, F Christmas Eve.
Right.
I'm not going.
Want me to go before? No, yeah.
Right. And Linda said, I know you don't want to go, but if you love me, you will go on Christmas Eve. And so I went on Christmas Eve and put up with everyone. Oh, aren't you glad to be here and everything?
No.
Yeah. So Lennier saying, I have to follow my heart is that kind of phrase.
Right.
Because she know that will cut through Delenn's selfishness and her thoughts because she is all about following your heart.
Right.
And so he knows the exact right thing to say.
And you're jealous because you couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, Linda used the right term. And
Sure.
so I'm thinking of Lennier as Linda and I'm
Okay.
Delenn, and I had to get past the selfishness
There you go.
and move on. So yeah, I love this and I agree. It is, I think it's just a really strong episode. And I'm really happy to see that after I had shared that my concerns about season 5, that we got this episode and I went, oh yeah, there are absolutely amazing episodes in season 5. So where we go. Anything
Uh,
else we need to think about,
yeah,
discuss?
I wanted to address the fact that when Lennier goes to the White Star, the Rangers line up for him.
Hmm.
And I'd like to know whether that is something they normally do or whether it was a sign of respect for Lennier.
Yeah.
What do you, what's your thought on it?
Yeah, I think it's one. I wonder if they do that with all Ranger
Yeah,
recruits. Is
that was my
that,
question.
yeah, or is it because he is such a high profile, the ambassador of Babylon 5, the head of the religious caste, his like he's chief of staff to the president. So is there
Right.
do this? I don't know.
Yeah. I honestly, I would have loved if I don't know if his character is of that
Yeah.
import, but I
Yeah.
would have liked to see some of the Babylon 5 crew there standing
Yes.
and respecting his decision
Hmm.
Yeah.
to leave. That would
Yeah.
have been awesome, I think.
Yeah.
By the way, Lou, someone who may agree with you about Londo
Hmm.
is JMS himself.
Yeah.
Hmm.
If you go to Lurker's Guide, he says, we are slowly bringing Londo full circle, and what an odd little voyage it's been, and so much sadness yet to come. He can learn, yes, and he can better himself, but because of his actions, so many have died, so much grief has occurred, that perhaps no amount of self revelation can cover the blood on the floor. There is an excellent moment in the Night Gallery movie where a prison camp commander has fled to Brazil and years later is trying to live out his life in peace. Realize that mistakes were made, is actually trying to find a better life. But as one man dies at his hands, says, quote, you have hung too many Christ on crosses for any God to forgive you.
I,
Yeah, I agree
I
with that
think,
sentiment. For me, it's when you take another life, you forfeit your own life, and
yeah,
you have to sacrifice your life in a meaningful way to try to atone for what you've done.
mhm, yeah,
That's maybe a very narrow
no.
look, but that's how I feel. Like it's eye for an eye kind of thing.
And I do think one of the things that, as the writer, JMS is telling the story and he's leaving it to the audience. Has he redeemed himself or not?
Sure, sure.
And so, yeah, I think it's good. A little bit of trivia. There had been leaked that earlier in the series, there was going to be an episode of The Very Long Night of Susan Ivanova.
No.
And they said that he said this, nothing was planned for Susan like this.
Mm,
I just liked the title. And when I realized we weren't going to use it, I adjusted it. So
okay.
okay,
there.
that's cool.
Yeah. Any final thoughts about this one?
We've got the whole telepath storyline.
That's in the
Oh,
second one.
sorry. Okay, I'm blending
Yep.
episodes. The
Yeah.
danger of
That's
watching two episodes.
I had to
yes,
stop
yes.
myself.
I was worried about that too. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. No, yeah. Yeah, to
Too
little
funny.
side goat, we're because I've got a couple of weekends where I can't record, we want to have a straight not miss episodes, so we're double downing.
Yes, straight
All
release
right.
schedule.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. All right. If no final thoughts, let's do ratings. Karen.
I'll give it, oh boy, what was the name of that rum? 8 bottles of rum, whatever it was that Londo drank.
Okay. All right. Good. Lou?
I'll give it 8 Christmas carols.
Ooh,
Ooh, nice. Yeah, I'm going to give it a little bit higher. I think I'm going to go 9 out of 10 Springsteen lyric lines because it's a death watch.
mm-hmm.
Um, it's a death trap, a suicide watch. So yeah. Yeah, I just think this was a really good one and well acted by everyone,
Yeah,
which was nice. So good.
hard to complain about anything in it.
Yes. We did get one feedback, so do you want to share, Karen?
I do. Okay. Zoom is not behaving. I'll just give you that right up front.
That's okay.
Okay, this is from Texas on the Shock. Hi, Texas. One word, I want to hear it. Andreas Katsoulis was having way too much fun playing Cartagia, or rather playing Jakar, playing Cartagia. Oh, I forgot. We got Rifa in this one. And
Oh yeah, we did.
yuck is all I have to say. I
Yeah.
thought we were done with him. Okay, sorry. What we get is a Christmas Carol story. Delenn thinks about the choices of his past. Sheridan talks about where he is now, and Veer tells him about what his future may or may not be. And then there is Jakar. I don't think there's a real equivalent for him, except maybe Marley, but that's a bit of a stretch. In any case, he's the one who forces Londo to confront himself. We've known for a while that Londo does feel remorse for a lot of what he's done. He was horrified to witness the bombing of Narn, and he was not a fan of what Cartagia was doing to Jakar. His pride never allowed him to actually express that remorse out loud, and even now, with his life on the line, he struggles to bring himself to say it. It takes Jakar literally beating it out of him before he can say the magic words. In other news, Lennier is feeling very much like a third wheel and decides to go join the Rangers. Sheridan and Delenn have a discussion about why he's doing it, but ultimately decide that it's a choice he must make, and preventing him from going through with it would do no good. Sheridan also makes a rather poorly timed joke that goes completely over Delenn's head. I wonder if that's a position Mira found herself in frequently. I heard of one occasion where she and other B5 casts were on a panel, and someone in the audience asked her to say moose and squirrel because she has an Eastern European accent. She does, and the entire room starts cracking up, and she's just sitting there with no idea what's so funny. So now the question is, does this bring about the redemption of Londo Mollari? My take is yes and no. I don't believe redemption is a one-time thing. I believe it's a process. Londo has either started it or taken a major step forward, but he's still got a journey left. What a great way
Amen.
to say that.
Amen.
Perfect. Will he continue it next week? Sheridan will do his best Londo impersonation. I imagine you are finding your principles most inconvenient now, yes? This is the Texas on the Shock signing off. Thank you,
Thank you.
Texas.
Yes, thank you, Texas. I now want Karen to read Londo, all the feedback into Londo.
I'm not a good mimic at
Yeah,
all.
You
yeah,
did a pretty good job there.
yeah. I
Did
thought that
I?
was perfect. Yeah, it sounded perfect.
Moose and squirrel also.
Yes, yes, indeed. So, all right, Lou, how about you? Any feedback on our channel?
So the season one or episode one of season five, I guess people are just still finding out that we're coming back. So the comments were fairly light. But Stuart Walt did say he thinks this episode is more of a episode as a Christmas Carol than A Wonderful Life. And Texas commented that he had completely forgot about the Princess Diaries 2 even existing. So there you go.
Not me. Oh, I'm a Julie Andrews fan. So anytime she's in anything, and I'm very happy.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so of course I love those movies.
Good.
I just want to say I'm tickled pink, and this is not meant in any way offensive, Karen, but that you, the big romance reader, did not call this
I know.
linear relationship at all. I
I
just find
agreed.
that kind of funny.
Yeah, I'm a bit embarrassed, but I get your Schadenfreude over it, definitely.
Yeah.
Good. All right, if someone wants to reach us, how can they, Lou?
They can come to YouTube and look for Lou's Reviews, where we host the quote unquote video version of the podcast, or they can go to Jesse's page. I don't know where you post your audio only versions of the podcast. You can maybe come up with that while I'm talking.
Sure.
And I also want to mention the fact that we do our JKL, Jesse, Karen, Lou Media podcast, where we do one-offs of limited run series or movies or comics. And we've done a pretty good swath of stuff there that you should all check out if you're into Springsteen or science fiction stuff like The Devs or Station 11 or Midnight, or did we do Midnight and Midnight Mass? We've done a
Yep.
little bit of horror. So yeah, check that out, and you'll find a lot of great stuff there as well. On my channel, I have writer interviews and the Stephen King podcast. And on Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sytsma, Sytsma.
Yep.
All right, Karen.
Yeah. Don't forget we did Barbie too, the Barbie
And
movie.
I said we did a wide swath.
I know. I know.
Barbie.
I love that I got you guys to watch that, to be honest.
It's good because I never would have watched it on my own.
Yeah. And there's some redeeming qualities in it, definitely.
It is.
Okay. So you can reach us at jklb5podcast@gmail.com, like Texas did for this feedback. You can find me at Elevaria on most social media. I have a blog also, alliestuff.com, where the landing page has a bunch of links. I also have some older reviews of books and some Warcraft stuff on there. So you might find some interesting things there. I do get people visiting, and I'm guessing it's from the podcast because this is the only place I mention it. And that's pretty much it. I'm fairly active on Twitter still. So that's probably your best bet.
Thank you. I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on X, aka Twitter. Yes, you can find Last Best Hope for Conversation on any podcast platform, including Apple Podcast, Good Pod, everywhere you want, anywhere there is a podcast. We're on those players, so you can certainly check us out there. You can hear me talk music on Set Lusting Bruce. John Hyatt, we just hit episode 100
Ooh,
on
congratulations.
Perfectly Good Podcast. Yes.
Congrats.
That's
And
great.
Linda joined us. So
Nice.
that was yes. So that was really sweet of her to
Linda's
do.
his wife, in case
Yes.
you didn't catch that earlier.
Yes. And she normally has no interest on being a podcast, but I played it's our 100th episode. And
Mm,
oh, yeah, by the way, my mom just died, and I really need you to.
yeah,
And I went to Christmas Eve at your in-laws.
right. And
So,
I'll say right now, if Sarah Goodman Confino is listening, Jesse wants you on the podcast.
yes, I do. She is amazing.
Jesse and I talked about it earlier.
Yeah, and a couple of people were very nice enough to send notes to on Facebook saying how much they enjoyed hearing Linda because Linda was very nervous. She didn't think anyone wanted to hear her, and a couple of people were nice enough to say, "Tell your wife she did great. I'd love to
Oh,
have her on again." That was really sweet.
that's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we are wrapping up the House of the Dragon discussion on Small Council Matters. So, in case you are playing catch up, Lou used to be part of the Small Council, moved away, but he is there in spirit always. So, we've had a really good time talking this season. All right, we're going to be back next week to talk about another episode of Babylon 5. But in the meantime, thank you, Karen.
You are welcome.
Thank you, Lou.
No, well, you're welcome. Blah.
You're
You're welcome.
Thank you, listeners. We will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Perfect.
And scene.